Welcome to Unfiltered and Unstoppable with Romesburg. Real strategies for real advisors, a podcast that dives into what it takes to scale a thriving financial practice. Each week, we'll discuss actionable strategies, tools, and insights to keep you ahead in today's financial landscape. From innovative products and powerful marketing tactics, you'll get unfiltered truth and unstoppable strategies. Let's get started by building your unstoppable financial practice today.
All right. Welcome back to Unfiltered and Unstoppable, real strategies for real advisors. I'm your host, Rob Romesburg, and today we will be diving right into a topic that honestly, most advisors might believe that they've already mastered, but in reality, it remains one of the quietest separating lines between an average advisory firm and truly elite firms. And it's quite simply risk tolerance. So I'm sure that most of you that hear these words, your immediate reaction is probably predictable. You might be thinking generic questionnaire, compliance requirement, account paperwork, something required during onboarding, and we complete it, and yeah, we save it, and we move on from there. And if we're being honest, for many firms, that's probably where the process ends. Um, but today, I want to slow all of that down because there are really two different audiences listening right now. And I want to make sure that both of you are walking away with something actionable. Because the goal of this episode isn't to make risk tolerance sound important. The goal is to help you use it or perfect it. So ultimately, clients can make better decisions and also extremely important, so your firm becomes more resilient. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about the industry misunderstanding. Let's paint a picture here. So a new prospect walks into your office, you run the discovery, you gather assets, you complete a risk tolerance questionnaire, and maybe it spits out moderate growth, balanced, all of the typical um, definitions there. So you build the allocation, everybody feels good, meetings complete. Uh, but the truth is, all that document or that score or that questionnaire, all that captured was exactly one moment in time, one emotional state, one life circumstance, one perception of risk. And unfortunately, we human beings, we are not static creatures, right? Your clients are evolving constantly. Confidence changes, um, fears change, priorities change, their sleep at night changes. Yet somehow the industry still treats risk tolerance like it has an expiration date of never, and that disconnect creates massive problems later on. And that's also why the best advisors don't treat risk tolerance like another piece of paperwork. They know that it is showing true leadership. It is emanating true leadership. Which brings me back to the two audiences that are listening right now. And for those that aren't fully using risk tolerance yet, so if you're not an advisor who either rarely runs formal risk tolerance assessments, Maybe you use them inconsistently, or you're just delegating them entirely just to get it over with, or maybe you view them as just another document for compliance. I'm going to be very direct with you. You are quite frankly, quite literally, leaving one of the most powerful leadership tools completely underutilized. Because risk tolerance is not about satisfying regulation. It's totally about answering one foundational question. Does this client, do these clients truly understand the experience that they're about to live through? Not the return expectations, the experience. Investing is an experience. Portfolios are an experience. And with every single investment strategy, those carry an emotional journey along with them. Because whether you want to believe it or not, volatility, uncertainty, periods of doubt, periods of confidence, when those enter into a client's journey specifically without clarity, those clients aren't going to just abandon the investments. They're going to abandon you, the advisor. So, introducing risk tolerance properly is not administrative. It's preventative leadership. It allows you to say things along the lines of, before we talk about solutions, I want to understand how uncertainty actually impacts you. Lean in, hang out for a second, get comfortable in your skin. Let them really let that statement sink in. And you are going to see that instantly the relationship changes. You are going to go totally away from a product discussion. And now we are talking about behavioral alignment. And for those of you that are already using a risk tolerance tool, and you're probably thinking, Rob, come on, man, we already do risk tolerance. Awesome, great, phenomenal. But here's the question I have for you. Are you simply using it, or are you perfecting it? Because the truly elite advisor, the true lead advisor, doesn't treat risk tolerance as just an intake step. They treat it as the ongoing calibration system. So there's a massive difference between asking, well, Jim and Mary, what level of risk are you comfortable with? And actually helping a client discover, so what level of uncertainty can you actually live through without changing decisions? That's what it's all about. That's what we're talking about. Because those are not the same thing. Those are two totally different questions. One is gathering information, the other one is understanding behavior, because behavior determines outcomes. And if you are trying to elevate the outcomes in your practice, you have to elevate the way you educate your clients specifically around risk. So let me say that again. You have to elevate the way you educate your clients around risk. That is big. That's huge. That's what we're going to take away today. So let's talk about the the, the client facing, the prospect facing education portion of this. So we're going to talk about practical application now. And believe it or not, there are still a ton of advisors out there that struggle explaining why risk tolerance needs updating. Not just, hey, we took a risk tolerance, but why we need to update it and review it on a regular basis. So here's some language that'll work beautifully for you. We're not updating this because markets changed. We're updating your risk profile because life changes and it changes how risk feels. So think about that. More specifically, what we mean is a 45-year-old accumulator will absolutely experience volatility totally different than a 63-year-old approaching retirement income. Same market, different reality, and this is where you, the advisor, becomes the educator. Might say something along the lines: risk tolerance isn't about how you feel during good markets. It's about how you behave during difficult ones. Once again, this is about investor behavior, and your clients will immediately understand that. And so now what we're trying to do is move you from a technical advisor to a trusted guide. And if you really want to sharpen this, here's a key concept that will separate an okay risk tolerance conversation from an elite one. So here's another teaching opportunity. Risk tolerance has two completely different components: emotional tolerance and financial capacity. And these two often, you'll see that they often become into conflict. So a business owner may feel aggressive, however, might financially not be able to afford sequence of returns risk anymore. A conservative personality may actually require more growth exposure. So here's your role throughout all of this. You're trying to find alignment, not agreement. The elite advisor isn't just simply honoring emotions. You've got to make sure that you're able to interpret them responsibly. And updating risk tolerance on a regular basis will be able to immediately help you uncover those mismatches early on. And that's what you're looking to do. So to really make this all concrete, I'm going to give you some framework that will help you evaluate your current process instantly. So there are 5 levels of risk tolerance mastery. Because once the advisor understands why risk tolerance matters, the next question then becomes, what does mastery actually look like? So not I don't mean by participation, not completion. I mean mastery. Because in my experience, the advisors tend to fall into one of 5 distinct levels when it comes to risk tolerance. And understanding where you actually sit today might completely change how you approach client conversations moving forward. So, level number 1, the compliance level. This is where, honestly, most of the industry operates. Risk tolerance exists primarily because it has to. So, the questionnaire gets completed, scores generated, the allocation matches the score, files saved, box checked, on to the next step. At this level, risk tolerance protects the paperwork, but it does not at all protect behavior. And the danger with that is when volatility arrives, when, not if, when volatility arrives, clients don't remember filling out that questionnaire. All that they know and remember and feel is fear and uncertainty. And now all of a sudden, you, the advisor, you are thrown into reaction mode as opposed to leadership mode. And that's where we want you to be, is in leadership mode. So the level one advisor is managing the aftermath. They're not prepared for it. Level number two, the allocation level. Once again, we have 5 levels. So you've moved beyond compliance. You're actually using risk tolerance to help guide the portfolio construction, and your asset allocation aligns with the client profile. So that's all wonderful. The models are selected intentionally, and your strategies are matching the comfort levels. This is better, much better, without a doubt. But we still have some hidden limitation here, because the advisor now is assuming, well, if the allocation matches the score, then that alignment exists. Now we're good. But alignment on paper doesn't necessarily guarantee alignment under stress. So you are agreeing intellectually, but the markets will be testing them emotionally. And then that's where level two breaks down. So we need to start looking at level three, which is the education level. And this is really when you start to separate yourself. This is where you are really now you're putting your toes into the pond of the elite advisor. This is where risk tolerance really becomes educational. So this is where you, the advisor, are explaining volatility, teaching volatility. You are walking your clients through what might be or what are historical downturns. You bring up realistic expectations. You are preparing your clients for what markets feel like, not just how they perform. And you're going to use language along the lines of, so this portion of the portfolio might actually experience periods that will feel uncomfortable. And by the way, for this portion of the portfolio, that is normal. You are describing the experience before living it, and that's when something powerful happens. Your clients will no longer be surprised. And why that's important is because surprise is the biggest driver of panic. Still yet, we haven't touched on mastery yet. That was level three. We are now on level four, the behavioral coaching level. And this is where you really start to operate at that elite advisor level. This is where risk tolerance is ongoing. It's dynamic. It really is. It's revisited. It's discussed on a regular basis. And this is where you are starting to realize and recognize something really critical. Risk tolerance changes even if the portfolio doesn't. So now your conversations are going to sound different. Instead of asking, what risk level are you? You're going to ask, has your relationship with uncertainty changed since we last met? Your relationship with volatility, has that changed since we last met? We are really opening up the coaching behavior now. We are recalibrating expectations. We are reinforcing emotional preparedness. And now, for certain, your clients are not going to see you just as their investment manager or money manager, but as the decision guide. And this is going to dramatically reduce any sort of emotional decision making, especially during volatile markets. However, we still have one final level. This is the true leadership level, level five. This is mastery. At level five, you're going to see that risk tolerance becomes truly embedded into the culture of your relationship with your client. So your clients are going to expect calibration, yeah. They're going to expect discussion, Um, they're going to have a great understanding of risk alignment, but they're also going to understand that it's ongoing. However, most importantly, they're going to very much trust decisions that are being guided intentionally. And so at this level, advisors are going to be proactively saying things like, part of my responsibility is making sure that your financial plan evolves as your life evolves. And what you should notice what happens there. Risk tolerance is no longer the event. It is the leadership. It becomes leadership. And leadership creates stability. And so you're going to see some advantages to the level 5 advisor. What's really fascinating about the level 5 advisor, what they experience will be fewer, maybe even almost zero panic calls. My favorite thing is when we are experiencing great market volatility and I call one of my advisors and hey, how, how are your clients reacting? And when they reply, they're fine. They know their plan. They understand their plan. We've prepared them for this. I haven't heard from anybody. So they're getting fewer panic calls, much higher retention, greater asset consolidation, meaning they have all of their clients' assets, stronger referrals, definitely a calmer client base during volatility. Not because the markets are behaving differently, but because the expectations were engineered properly. They were set properly, and therefore your clients feel much more prepared. And the important thing is that your prepared clients stay committed, and committed clients succeed. Therefore, your referrals go through the roof. So I've got an honest question for you. I'd like for you to ask yourself, where do you believe that you're operating today of those 5 levels? Once again, level 1 is compliance. Level 2 is allocation. Level 3, education. Level 4, behavioral coaching. And level 5, true leadership. And more importantly, what would change in your practice if every single client or interaction moved up just one level? That mastery does not require reinvention. It just requires intentional elevation. And you will see a compounding effect from this because when risk tolerance moves into leadership territory, everything downstream improves. Your client conversations improve, your planning improves, your confidence improves, even your own stress as the advisor improves because now you're no longer defending decisions during downturns. You're only going to be reinforcing agreements that have already been made. That's the difference between reacting and leading. So let's make it ridiculously practical. 'Cause I want to make sure you have the language available for your next appointment. Um, because understanding risk tolerance philosophically is so valuable. But you might be as the advisor right now thinking, all right, Rob, I get it, man. This all makes sense, but how do I actually explain this to clients without sounding technical, scripted, compliance driven? That's the right question. I get it. Because how you introduce risk tolerance determines whether the client sees it as just another step, another piece of paperwork, or if they view it as actual professionalism. And the elite advisor understands something extremely important. Clients, prospects, and clients don't resist risk tolerance, they resist confusion. So the explanation has to be simple, it has to be human, it has to be relatable, and once again, leadership driven. So here's a framework that you can use word for word. So when starting a relationship, when we have a prospect or revisiting risk tolerance with a client, say this. So Jim and Mary, but before we talk about investments or returns or strategies, I want to understand something more important. I want to understand, how does uncertainty really impact you? Pause, let that land, then we continue. So every investment strategy works mathematically over time. That's true. But the right strategy for you is the one that you will stay committed to when, once again, not if, when markets become uncomfortable. So we've reframed this whole entire conversation. So we're no longer talking about performance. What we are talking about is commitment. And commitments drive outcomes. And then you're going to finish all of that with, this process is going to help us design a plan that matches not only your goals, but your ability to live through the market's ups and downs confident. That's it. No jargon, no complexity, just clarity. So, why does this work psychologically? We're going to break down why this explanation is so powerful. First, what you've done is you've led with understanding instead of selling. Second, you've positioned volatility as normal, and volatility is not failure. Third, you shift responsibility from markets to alignment, which is what it's all about. Now, immediately, as a prospect or as your client, I feel safer. I'm leaning back in my chair. And once again, when clients feel safe, when clients have clarity, they answer honestly. And that honesty is where the real planning begins. So let's talk specifically about the clients that you worked with for years, because this is where many advisors struggle. They might assume that risk tolerance conversations are only at the beginning of the relationship. However, my elite advisor revisits risk tolerance with confidence. So here's some language that you can use with your current clients. Well, one of the things that we're going to do on a regular basis is recalibrate risk alignment, because how people experience uncertainty changes over time. So hopefully you notice something important there. You're not implying anything's wrong. What you're demonstrating there is process. And then you'll continue from there. Even if your investments haven't changed, your life may have. And I want to make sure that everything still feels aligned. Your clients will appreciate this immediately. Why? Because it signals ongoing care. This is why they worked with you to begin with. And you might hear from clients, "Hey, don't worry about it. Nothing has changed." You might hear this, "Everything's fine." Don't stop there. As an elite advisor, you need to gently go deeper. Try this. That's great, Jim and Mary. But let me ask it a different way. If the markets experienced a meaningful downturn tomorrow, would it impact how you think about retirement or spending decisions? Once again, now we've moved from theory to lived experience. And then the clients will start reflecting differently. So here's another moment where mastery shows up, specifically during market stress. And you might be that advisor that just jumps straight into reassurance. However, you got to also make sure that you're reconnecting to risk tolerance. In fact, you want to do that first. Something along the lines of saying, "Hey, Jim and Mary, remember when we discussed how this particular portion of the portfolio would behave during difficult markets?" Well, what we're seeing right now actually falls within that expectation. That statement right there is incredibly stabilizing because panic comes from surprise, as we determined earlier, and the purpose of risk tolerance, of the risk tolerance conversation, it is designed to eliminate surprise. What one of the simplest, yes, most yet most powerful question that an elite advisor will use is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with how your investments would behave during market uncertainty? And then you're going to ask, what would need to change to move that number higher? Once again, let it land, sit back, let them ponder on that. What this question uncovers is emotional truth, and it uncovers it instantly. And emotional truth drives better decisions than any spreadsheet ever will. And when you, as the advisor, explains risk tolerance this way, your clients stop viewing them as investment selectors, and they start viewing you as the guide, the decision partner, the stability partner. And that position changes everything. Because clients rarely leave the advisor that they emotionally trust. And the real outcome, what happens when you master this explanation, your clients will understand volatility before experiencing it. Their expectations then become realistic, and their emotional reactions decrease significantly. Therefore, conversations become calmer, and therefore, retention improves naturally. So now you're not working harder, you're communicating better. So let me challenge you with something. If a client panics during volatility, it's rarely because the market failed. It's usually because expectations weren't fully aligned or fully set. So risk tolerance conversations are where the expectation alignment begins, right? You can't skip that step as an elite advisor. So now you've got the language. Let's talk about consequences of not having it dialed in. And we're not talking about performance, products, markets, but consequences. Because if risk tolerance is misunderstood or skipped or poorly implemented, that the cost rarely is immediate. It will show up later, always at the worst possible time, and always under pressure. So I'm sure every single one of you listening has experienced some sort of version of this. The markets decline, volatility increases, headlines are negative, and oh my God, all of a sudden the phones are ringing. You already know the tone before answering. The client's anxious, uncertain, probably frustrated. And then the conversation quickly moves towards, I didn't realize it could drop this much. Or, oh my gosh, this is so much riskier than I expected. Now, pause for a moment because the situation rarely begins during the market decline. It actually began years earlier at the onboarding when the expectations weren't fully aligned because your client isn't measuring risk the same way that you do. Uh, some advisors might define risk mathematically, with standard deviation and drawdowns and historical ranges and probability models, all of that stuff. However, your clients define risk emotionally. Risk to them means loss of control, fears of running out of money, lifestyle uncertainty, regret, embarrassment about making a wrong decision. So when advisors believe that risk tolerance is simply an allocation exercise, you are unintentionally leaving emotional expectations unaddressed. And emotional expectations always surface eventually. So imagine this scenario, what we'll call the late discovery problem. A client identifies as moderately aggressive during onboarding. Markets have been strong, confidence is high, allocation reflects growth exposure. Everything works until retirement approaches. Now we're taking withdrawals because we are retired. You're going to see that the income dependence is now increased. Market volatility is hit. Now your losses feel completely different because of what we call accumulation risk and then distribution risk. And you're going to see now, all of a sudden, we are now emotionally worlds apart. The advisor didn't necessarily make a bad recommendation here, but the risk tolerance wasn't recalibrated. And now all of a sudden the client feels exposed, not because of performance, but because of misalignment. So let's take a look at another scenario, the surprise reaction. This is the most common one, in my opinion. The client experiences the first meaningful downturn after years of positive markets. All of a sudden they panic and, oh my God, we better reset these allocations and we better go into cash. And guess what? All that does, we've now locked in our losses and we're still terrified. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, months later, markets recover, miss that opportunity, and now something far more damaging happens: trust erosion. Not anger, not conflict. Just got some quiet doubt about my advisor. And quiet doubt is the most dangerous force in an advisory relationship because your clients are going to start wondering, did my advisor really understand me? So let's shift some perspective here real quick. Advisor to advisor, because this isn't just about client outcomes. It's also about the stability of your firm, right? And when risk tolerance isn't actively managed, your complaints are going to increase, second opinions are going to appear, y- assets are going to quietly transfer out from underneath your umbrella, your relationships are going to weaken. And the difficult truth is, many advisory relationship breakdowns aren't because necessarily of performance failures, it's expectation failures. So clients actually can tolerate volatility remarkably well if they expected it or if they were guided towards it. And the conversation that should have happened earlier, and just imagine hearing this during volatility. Hey, Jim and Mary, I get it. This is uncomfortable. But you remember when we met last March and we walked through that volatility, we walked through that o overall volatility index, and remember, we talked about this being a possibility, and we talked about how this still fit within your risk tolerance plan. All of a sudden, that changes everything. I'm calm as the advisor. The client understands, and they recall, and they get recommitted, and now my relationship has actually been strengthened as opposed to fractured. And guess what? That outcome was determined way before these markets moved. Because here's the thing: is if you've done any sort of behavior finance, you will notice or know that behavioral finance research has consistently shown something very powerful. Investor outcomes are often reduced not by markets, but because of timing decisions driven by emotion. The buying high, the selling low, reacting instead of staying disciplined. Those risk tolerance conversations are your first defense against behavioral mistakes. It's going to create psychological preparation, and psychological preparation will reduce reaction. And another cost that's rarely discussed is your stress. When expectations are unclear, and then at that point in time, every market downturn becomes exhausting because of the incoming calls, because of the emergency meetings, because I have to continually reassure everyone, and I'm consistently on the defense. But once again, the advisor who consistently aligns risk tolerance, they experience something totally different. Calmer client bases, fewer panic reactions, more productive conversation because that leadership happened much earlier. And there's one more layer to all of this. Your reputation. You know your clients talk, especially during difficult markets. You want your clients to be prepared because a prepared client will say, "Huh, my advisor walked me through this ahead of time." And when they don't, they might say something along the lines, "I didn't realize that this could happen." That's what you don't want them to say. One response builds referrals. The other one builds skepticism and gives the opportunity for their friend or family member to say, "That's why you need to work with my advisor." So, what is the cost? Meaning, what is the real cost of getting risk tolerance wrong? It's not temporary volatility. It's the lost trust. It's the behavioral mistakes. It's reduced retention. It's your burnout as the advisor, missed long-term outcomes. And guess what? None of those show up on performance reports, but you will feel all of them. Now the opportunity hidden in all of this, and it's a very encouraging part, is that this is completely fixable. Um, like we said earlier, risk tolerance doesn't require new products, or dramatic operational change. It just requires intentional conversation along with consistency and leadership. Because once again, when expectations are aligned, markets lose the ability to surprise your clients. And the way you make that permanent is with the system. So let's talk a little bit about what I have seen as a annual risk tolerance system that my elite advisory firms are using. Uh, the elite advisory firm isn't just relying on understanding alone; they're relying on systems. And one of the most defining characteristics separating a scalable advisory firm from reactive ones is this: risk tolerance is never random. It's scheduled, it's expected, it's repeatable. Your clients know it's coming. The advisor knows when it happens, and the alignment becomes a part of your firm's culture. So let me walk you through what I've seen some of my elite firms how they've done it. Step one, first of all, you're going to normalize risk reviews from day one. This is something that you're going to make clear in your onboarding. You're not going to present risk tolerance as a one-time exercise. You're going to set the expectation immediately. You might say something along the lines of, "Hey, Jim and Mary, part of our process is revisiting risk alignment on a regular basis, because your life and your circumstances are going to evolve over time." Now, something subtle will happen at that point in time. Your future reviews are no longer going to feel corrective, that they're going to feel extremely professional. Your clients will expect calibration, just like a medical checkup, business review, and just like financial planning itself. You are going to be removing the friction, but before it ever exists. And this is where I've seen a lot of firms fall short with step two, building the risk tolerance into the annual reviews. You need to review the performance annually for sure, but those that fall short aren't reviewing the alignment or the realignment on an annual basis. So the elite firms that I work with, they are making sure that the risk tolerance is embedded into the annual review. It's not an option. It is systematic. It is every year, every client, and the framing matters. Instead of saying something like, "Hey, we need to redo your risk questionnaire," bland, boring, generic, doesn't say anything. You're going to say this: "Hey, Jim and Mary, today we're going to confirm that your investment strategy still reflects where you're at in your life today." Wow, that language right there reinforces partnership. It reinforces that we're on the same side of the table, and it doesn't feel like paperwork. Step three to this process, we need to make sure we have trigger based updates because the annual reviews alone aren't enough. You also are going to operate within trigger events because risk tolerance should automatically be revisited during client experiences, such as things like a retirement, loss of a spouse, health change, sale of a business, inheritance, uh, any sort of income activation, a lifestyle change, because life events change risk faster than markets do. And the advisor who recalibrates during transitions will prevent any sort of future instability. Step number four, you want to make sure you compare the past versus present thinking. And this is where mastery really shows up. So you're not just rerunning the questionnaire, you, you're comparing results historically, but something along the lines of, hey, last time we completed this, you indicated comfort with this level of volatility. Let's talk about whether or not that still feels accurate today. Clients are going to see that as evolution. They're going to recognize growth. And also, they will continue to gain clarity about how priorities have changed. And this conversation is definitely going to deepen trust. And then step five, we need to confirm the alignment after the recommendation. And this is a step, unfortunately, not very many people talk about after presenting the strategy adjustments. Circle back and ask and say, based on everything we discussed today, does this still feel aligned with how you want to experience risk moving forward? Does this still feel right? And what this question is going to do is create ownership, because you want your clients to participate in the decision, not be recipients of the decision, if that makes sense. And what ownership does is it dramatically reduces second guessing later on. And the step six is we got to make sure that we document the conversation, not just the score. And those elite firms are documenting the reasoning, not just the results. The reason why they do this is because the understanding of the client matters more than just the numbers. So your notes should reflect things like client's concerns, any life changes, emotional comfort level, planning priorities, decision rationale. And now your documentation is going to tell a story. It's going to be a story of guidance, story of leadership, a story of care. And then step 7, let's make sure that risk alignment is a part of your brand. This is the final evolution because an elite firm doesn't quietly perform risk reviews. They are communicating them openly. And your clients are going to hear things like, "Hey, our firm on a regular basis recalibrates investment risk." And the reason why we do that is to ensure your financial lifestyle stays aligned as your circumstances change. Now we are talking. Not now your prospect and your clients are hearing professionalism. Your clients feel ongoing stewardship, and your process becomes memorable. And when this system runs consistently, you're going to see something very remarkable happen. All of a sudden, the markets are going to be less disruptive. I don't mean market volatility disappears. I mean, your clients aren't going to be disrupted. Your client calls are going to be calmer. Your reviews will be deeper. Your retention is going to strengthen. Your referrals are going to increase, all because your clients feel guided, not managed. And over time, your practice is going to become more predictable, less reactive, more scalable. Let me ask you something honestly. If the markets decline significantly tomorrow, would every client within your firm would they clearly understand why their portfolio is behaving the way it is? If that answer is uncertain, the, the opportunity here isn't portfolio adjustment. It's risk alignment. And systems, efficient systems, will solve that permanently. And once you have that system running, something else happens that most advisors don't talk about enough. Your risk review isn't just protecting the relationship, it's creating growth, true growth. And this might be something you're missing entirely. Risk reviews truly unlocks discovery. Because what happens during a reassessment of risk, your clients are going to naturally discuss outside holdings, cash holdings, inherited assets, changing goals, family dynamics. So we are prospecting here. What we are doing is uncovering reality. So try asking something like this. Has anything changed in your life that would change how uncertainty feels financially today? That question's going to transform the meeting. Because it's going to invite your clients to reveal what's real now, what's changed, what they're worried about, what they haven't said out loud yet. And when you consistently run that conversation, you're not going to have to ask for assets. Clients are going to bring it up on their own naturally throughout that whole conversation. And that's a beautiful thing. Before we wrap up here today, I want to give you something that's going to make this episode immediately practical inside your practice, usable inside your practice. It's something that we call the client risk alignment conversation guide. And just so we're clear, this is not another generic risk tolerance questionnaire. That this is the conversation framework that will be in front of the questionnaire and on top of the questionnaire. So you're actually going to be leading the discussion, not just collecting answers. Because the thing is that most don't have a risk tolerance problem. Most have a risk conversation problem. So the client is going to fill out the form, get the score, and they still don't really understand what they agreed to. They don't really get it. And then when volatility shows up, confusion shows up. And once again, the confusion is what creates the panic. This guide is built to solve that. So what's inside it? When you request it, you're going to get a true plug and play. You'll be able to use it in three separate places. Uh, Number one, during the first appointment slash onboarding process. It's a simple script to be able to introduce risk tolerance in a way that clients will and prospects will actually respect. Not that we have to do this, but this is how we protect your outcomes. Number two, the second way you will use this is during annual reviews. It's going to provide you with a short yet impactful way to recalibrate risk management. And even when everything, quote, seems fine, it's going to help you to be able to truly uncover changes in goals, time horizon, income needs, emotional comfort, without making the meeting feel heavy. That's important. And then the third way that you would use this is during those volatile market conversations. This is huge. It's going to give you the language to be able to reconnect clients to expectations and prevent those reactive decisions that will only hurt them. That way, you're not spending all of that time playing defense. And so what this is overall going to help you do in the real world is you obviously want clients to stay committed. You want fewer emotional calls. You want a clear agreement on why the portfolio is built the way it is. And you want to have client relationships that are strong even when markets aren't. That's what this guide is going to help you do. Overall, it's going to help you lead better conversations, uh, reduce emotional reactions, strengthen retention, improve the documentation alignment. The simplest way to use it, by the way, is to use the opening script in every new client meeting, add the 3-question recalibration to every annual review agenda, and then keep that volatility script as a ready to go template for when headlines spike. That's it. No overhaul, no complicated training, just a better process. And the payoff is when you do this consistently, your clients are going to be surprised by normal volatility. They're going to stop second guessing. They're going to stop feeling like markets happen to them. And they're going to start feeling like, hey, my advisor prepared me for this. And this is where the trust becomes durable. And this is where your firm truly becomes scalable. And this is where your practice is going to become calmer and more profitable without you actually having to work harder. So request it out at the website, which is simply evolvewithgradient.com/ignite team. Once again, evolvewithgradient.com/ignite team. Once again, it's called the Client Risk Alignment Conversation Guide. And the the biggest takeaway I'd say from today's conversation is that risk tolerance isn't about completing a requirement. It's about bringing clarity. It's about making sure that volatility doesn't feel personal. It's about leadership. We want to make sure that your clients understand risk before they experience it. And we want to make sure that you're operating at a leadership level because at the leadership level, that's when the powerful happens. That's when you're going to make sure your clients are calm and your reviews are meaningful and any sort of market downturn becomes manageable as opposed to stressful. And that way you aren't spending all your time defending decisions. So over the next 30 days, I want you to intentionally revisit risk alignment with 10 clients. Once again, not because compliance requires it, not because of the markets and how they're performing, but because leadership means making sure your clients are still positioned to succeed emotionally and financially. So just reach out and simply say, hey, you know what we're doing is we are recalibrating risk alignments across all client plans this year. to ensure that everything still reflects where you're at today. Watch what happens. You're going to see immediately that you've deepened trust, and you're going to have some awesome conversations, and you're going to see that your relationships are strengthened. And before we wrap up, I want to sincerely say thank you. Thank you for serving your communities. Thank you for guiding families through uncertainty. Thank you for helping people make confident financial decisions during moments that truly matter. Your work matters more than most people will ever see. If today's episode brought you value, be sure to like the show, follow the podcast, share this episode specifically with your partners and your firm, because quite frankly, stronger firms create stronger outcomes, not just for clients but for our entire profession. So until next time, remember, great advisors don't just manage money; they prepare generational legacies. This is Rob Romesburg. This has been Unfiltered and Unstoppable, which is real strategies for real advisors. As always, thank you for what you do.
The opinions herein may be from personal experience and may not necessarily be those of the Gradient Financial Group, its employees, or affiliates. Any results, topics, or outcomes are for informational purposes only. Financial professional use only. Rob Romesburg does not render tax, legal, or accounting advice and is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.